the summer of 1980, 4 nuns left their small mountain convent for what should have been a short walk into town. They never came back. For nearly 3 decades, the case grew cold, until a priest unlocked a long-forgotten storage room beneath the church. What he found inside would unravel one of the most haunting mysteries the village had ever kept hidden. It was June 14, 1980. The village of St. Ives sat tucked deep in the mountains, its cobblestone streets and centuries-old church looking almost frozen in time. The convent stood at the edge of the village, a modest stone building where 8 nuns lived in quiet devotion. That morning, 4 of them, Sister Agnes, Sister Margaret, Sister Claire, and the youngest, Sister Elena, set out together. They planned to walk down the hill into the village square to collect supplies and visit the parish schoolchildren. Witnesses recalled seeing the 4 women in their habits, chatting softly as they strolled through the narrow lanes. The baker waved as they passed. A farmer saw them cross the bridge, and then nothing. They never arrived at the school. They never came back to the convent. By nightfall, the other sisters raised the alarm. The police began their search with urgency. The path from the convent to the town was well-traveled, barely a mile long with nowhere to disappear. Yet after hours of scouring the route, there was no trace of the women. No footprints, no discarded belongings, no signs of struggle. It was as if the 4 nuns had walked straight into the earth and vanished. The villagers were shaken. This was not a city with crime or unrest. This was a sleepy mountain hamlet where everyone knew everyone else. And yet, 4 women of faith had gone missing in broad daylight without leaving a single clue behind. By the next morning, rumors were already swirling. Some whispered of kidnappers, others of accursed woods near the path, and a few quietly wondered if the church itself knew more than it was saying. The disappearance of the 4 sisters quickly became the most urgent crisis St. Ives had ever faced. By the second day, the tiny mountain village looked like a military staging ground. Deputies from neighboring towns, local volunteers, and even forest rangers gathered with lanterns and dogs, combing every inch of the mile-long path between convent and square. They dragged the river that ran beneath the bridge. They scoured barns and cellars. They questioned everyone who had seen the women that morning. The baker insisted they were cheerful, carrying empty baskets for supplies. The farmer swore he saw them laughing as they crossed the bridge. After that, nothing. By the 3rd day, fear had taken hold. The nuns were respected, beloved figures in the village. For them to disappear without trace felt almost sacrilegious. Some villagers whispered that the women had been taken by outsiders. Others muttered about the nearby forest, the Blackwood Grove. Local legend claimed the grove was cursed, a place of strange lights and voices after dark. Searchers went in anyway, cutting through brambles and mud. But they found nothing, just the heavy silence of the pines. As the days turned to weeks, the authorities were baffled. No ransom note ever came. No bodies surfaced in the river. No evidence of violence appeared. The convent bells rang each evening, but 4 voices were missing from the choir. The other sisters lit candles at the altar every night, praying their companions would return. But behind closed doors, the parish priest, Father Thomas, admitted something chilling to investigators. In his 30 years in the village, he had never seen a disappearance like this, and he feared they never would find the sisters alive. By late summer of 1980, the official search had slowed. Deputies returned to their towns, leaving behind a handful of locals still combing the trails on weekends. But in St. Ives, the mystery had only just begun to fester. In the tavern, villagers speculated endlessly. Some believed the sisters had been kidnapped by smugglers who used the mountain passes. Others muttered about the Cold War, claiming the women had been taken by foreign agents for reasons no one could explain. And then there were the darker whispers. The Blackwood Grove had always carried stories, strange chants heard at night, fires burning deep in the trees with no one around. Children dared each other to enter and often came back pale, insisting they saw shadows moving between the trunks. Now, with 4 nuns gone, the grove's reputation grew sinister. People said, The women had been lured off the road by something not human. The convent itself tried to stay calm, but inside fear gnawed at the remaining sisters. They slept in pairs. They locked the doors. They prayed harder, longer, as if sheer devotion could keep the darkness away. One evening, Father Thomas was approached by two of the older sisters. They told him something that had kept them silent until now. In the days before the disappearance, Sister Agnes, the eldest of the missing four, had confided that she believed someone was following them during their errands. She described the sensation of being watched, of footsteps echoing behind them, in the lanes. But when she turned, no one was ever there. Father Thomas didn't know what to make of it. Was it paranoia? Or had someone been hunting the nuns before they vanished? By the end of 1980, the disappearance of the four sisters was no longer front-page news. Investigators had followed every lead they could, but with no bodies, no ransom, no witnesses, the trail had gone ice cold. For the convent, life moved on outwardly. But within its walls, the loss never healed. Each evening, 4 empty places at the dinner table reminded the sisters of what had been taken. The convent choir, once rich with voices, now sounded hollow, missing the harmony those women had carried. Father Thomas, aging but determined, refused to let the memory fade. He kept every newspaper clipping, every report, every rumor filed in a locked cabinet in his office. Sometimes late at night, he'd sit with a lantern, thumbing through the papers, asking the same question. How could 4 people vanish from a mile-long path? As years passed, anniversaries of the disappearance became somber rituals. Villagers lit candles, whispered prayers, and told the story to their children. It became less a crime and more a legend. The vanished sisters of St. Ives, they called them. But Father Thomas never treated it like a legend. To him, it was unfinished business. And though decades wore on, he kept one promise. He would never stop looking for them. The 1980s became the 1990s. The world changed. New technology. New leaders, new wars, but in St. Ives, the mystery of the missing nuns never did. Tourists passed through, sometimes asking about the story. Writers came, hoping to pen books about the disappearance, but no one ever uncovered more than what was already known. By the early 2000s, Father Thomas was one of the few left who had lived through the original case. Many of the villagers who remembered the search had died or moved away. The convent now housed only 3 elderly sisters, too frail to continue the duties the vanished 4 had once carried. But one thing never changed. In the basement of the rectory, a heavy oak door had always remained locked. The older priest whispered that behind it was an unused storage chamber, sealed years before. Father Thomas alone had the key. For decades, he never felt the need to open it, until one evening in 2008, when a leak in the church roof caused water to trickle into the lower level. Thomas descended into the basement with a lantern following the damp trail. He reached the oak door and hesitated. For 28 years it had sat closed. That night, with the key trembling in his hand, he turned the lock and pulled the door open. What waited beyond would change everything. The air inside the storage chamber was damp and stale. Dust coated everything in thick layers. Old crates, broken pews, and church relics lay stacked haphazardly. But Father Thomas's lantern caught on something in the far corner that froze him. It was a wooden trunk. Its iron hinges were rusted and a heavy chain wrapped around it. He pulled the chain free and opened the lid. Inside were bundles of fabric, habits. 4 of them. His hands shook as he lifted one out. It was unmistakable. The black and white garment worn by the missing sisters. Beneath the fabric, he found rosaries, prayer books, and personal items that should have still been in the convent. At the bottom of the trunk, his lantern revealed something worse. Human bones. 4 sets tangled together. Father Thomas stumbled back, nearly dropping the lantern. For 28 years, the answer to the village's greatest mystery had been hidden. Beneath their own church, news of the discovery spread like wildfire. The tiny village was swarmed overnight by investigators, forensic teams, and journalists. For nearly 3 decades, people believed the sisters had vanished on the mountain road. Now it seemed their final resting place was beneath the very church they had served. The forensics confirmed it. The bones were female, consistent with the ages of the 4 missing nuns. Each bore marks of blunt force trauma. They had not wandered into the forest or fallen into the river. They had been murdered, and their killer had hidden them in the church basement. But who? And why? Theories erupted. Some believed it was an outsider who had attacked them, hiding the bodies quickly in the nearest place he could find. Others whispered darker things. That someone inside the church had betrayed them and the storage room had been locked to keep the truth buried. For Father Thomas, the weight was crushing. For 28 years, he had walked those halls, preached sermons above that chamber, never knowing the women lay beneath his feet. He wondered if he had been blind or if someone had deliberately kept the truth from him. The discovery brought closure, but it also opened wounds deeper than before. The case was officially closed in 2010. Authorities could not prove who had killed the sisters, only that it happened inside the convent grounds. No one alive was ever charged. Theories persisted that an intruder had taken advantage of the women, or that someone within the church had silenced them for reasons long buried. But for the village of St. Ives, the truth was unbearable. The women they had prayed for, searched for, and mythologized had never left. They had been hidden beneath the very place the community worshipped. The convent closed soon after. Pilgrims occasionally visited the site, lighting candles for the lost sisters. Some claimed the church was cursed now, haunted by the silence of the women who had lived and died there. As for Father Thomas, he died only a few years later, never forgiving himself for unlocking the door too late. His journals found after his death contained one final haunting line. Sometimes the greatest secrets are buried not in the earth but in the walls we trust the most.